Good afternoon, friends. Stephen Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live, and wanted to go over some different issues this evening with you guys. We're going to be talking about weather events, things that are going on all over the world. It's really becoming nuts, as well as a few other things. These genetically modified mosquitoes that have been released or that are planning to be released in 2021. Not just Florida, but Texas as well. Also be talking about this evening about just briefly about a young girl that was visiting, 16-year-old girl that was visiting Israel and Eilat, who was gang raped by 30 men. Supposedly these were all Israelis. There's been a lot of outcry once this story became public, and especially by different officials. But I can only imagine, of course, this girl was a tourist visiting Israel, and this happened to her. Then I could only imagine then what happens to these poor Palestinian girls who get caught in the same type of web of evil men, just carrying out their animalistic, predatorial horrors. So we'll be talking about that a little bit, as well as Israel's involvement in the first ever military exercises in Germany. Brother Wagner sent that to me, and there's actually, I forget which sister it was that sent me the article about this rape in Israel, but I do thank you for sending that and sharing that with me. And I want to say that was Lisa, but Lisa may have sent me the one about mosquitoes. My wife had already shared that with me earlier this morning, but thank you as well for sending that. Let's get right into this, though. These California fires, as those of you that know, Deborah Tavares and her husband Lou are in the midst of these fires that are going on in California right now. This will just kind of give you an idea of what they are dealing with, on a daily basis right now. The fires earlier today were getting very, very close. The smoke, the embers were already starting to fall on the roof of their house. So they are definitely in harm's way. And unless divine intervention steps in, this could be catastrophic for this family who has fought so hard to bring the truth out about what is going on in the world. And even these fires that are happening, how that Deborah brought out in these fires here, how that this is using a weather type weapons there. In fact, on the fires, one of the things that Deborah speaks about is the laser directed energy weapons that are used to start it. So I actually put up a little video here that shows one of these types of laser weapons here. They're talking about it here in this video here. We'll listen just for a second.
Directed energy weapon system for the self-protection of land, maritime and air platforms. It's funded by innovation funding and is at the leading edge, not just in technology, but in demonstrating the end-to-end capability and inform the UK's future procurement decisions in this area.
Future procurement decision. That's the UK's version there of that particular weapon. And but as you can see, though, these fires are raging out of control. And where did all these fires? How did they just suddenly all these fires just up and pop up out of nowhere? Right? I know it's very dry in California this time of year, but what you're going to hear is a clip of a video where Deborah talks about this, and I think it was in 2018. I'm going to pull that video up right now for you, and I want to play this clip here for you. Deborah Tavares, this was when she was on the Power Hour, but of course Deborah's channel, StopTheCrime.net, also her YouTube channel, StopTheCrime.net. Listen into this here real quick.
Theory, you can call whatever word you want. It is extremely suspicious, and there is certainly evidence that the story that we are being told is not true. At the heart of it is this woman, Deborah Tavares, who is an absolute hero. She doesn't like for me to say that, but I'm going to say it anyway. She is standing really in the face. Think about if what she's saying is true and her standing up, what that means, and the flack she is getting and the weight of the world that is on her. We appreciate her so much. We want to hear more of what's going on. Deborah Tavares, StopTheCrime.net. Welcome back to the Power Hour.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much for having me back on. Since last speaking with you, we have gone up to Butte County, to Paradise and some of the surrounding areas that were burned as well. And we've gone up with several ex-fire captains that between the two of them have 60 years of strike team fire experience. They also one of them was fighting here in the Tubbs fire in Northern California during October of 2017 and has since retired. He saw firsthand the intentional use of weapons, systems, and the primary focus on safety for the firefighters. A new method of firefighting is safety, of course, for the firefighters, evacuation, and clear the area, because they're not equipped at all to fight fires as they have been in the past. In fact, I want to say this now. We were filming a meeting here in Santa Rosa just after the car fire up in Redding. And the sheriff and other agencies were reporting on those firefighting efforts. And we were told by the sheriff that it was difficult to fight and literally arrive at that firefighting effort in the air because of all the drones that were flying over Redding at that time. And I asked in front of a group of a couple hundred people, why didn't you clear the drones out of the way? I mean, shoot them down if they were in the way of firefighting efforts. And he said...
Let me pause just for a second. Right now, they're showing this little small drone on there. I don't believe that Deborah's talking about these little toy drones that people are playing with. I think Deborah is talking about military drones, much larger. Let's continue on.
In front of all the people, we needed to first confirm what agency they were with. So I will leave that up to everybody as we roll in to what we observed in the town of Paradise. We saw, in fact, that the smart meters were involved. It was a house-to-house ignition. We know, and the firefighters observed, that the trees resisted the fires, which everyone can see from the overhead aerial photography, that the tops of the trees are still green. And we actually have on film in a predominantly destroyed school up in the town of Paradise, in a meter cabinet that was not singed on the exterior at all, was a blown-up smart meter inside. Now, on my other website, which I don't...
All right, this here, I was thinking that I actually had the clip there where Deborah talks about the laser technology that I was showing you, but this was actually the smart meter technology where they can ignite a house on fire. I do know that firsthand information as well. There is, in every power company, there is a control room, a secure control room, and that control room normally... there is no access to that room to anyone. It is very highly secured because the power company does have the ability to literally ignite your house on fire. I know this from years ago. I won't go into that issue, but I do know that that is a fact, that is true. And I can only imagine, of course, that was back in the old days. What can they do with these smart meters now? No doubt about it.
Talk about that much because I don't post on it regularly. Is smartmetersmurder.com. Everyone will find a link to smart meter fires throughout the many years of deployment history, including a number of Pacific Gas and Electric whistleblowers that were telling us years ago that Pacific Gas and Electric knew the smart meters were causing fires, and they are. They're pulsed, and they can cause brownouts in our homes, and they can take down our appliances. Anytime you have an appliance that has been destroyed or isn't functioning right, you have to suspect the smart meter if it's on your home. So I will say one thing right now for everyone that can: opt out of the smart meters as soon as possible. We have observed that in the fire areas, many of the homes that managed to survive did not have smart meters. Now, I can't say that completely, but we have made that observation. You must understand, we are in an active criminal crime scene, and the perpetrators are determining the cause. So we are up there with investigators, and other people are up there with investigation work being done as well to determine the facts around this. But I want to, and it's important to understand that, of course, we know the capabilities of the weapons systems. We've been told about this for many, many years. And there are many documents that talk about that. And we have the Senate report that Kucinich put forth years ago that talked about the cease and desist hopeful plan, that they wouldn't use space-based weapons and weapon systems that would cause fires. So it is just really important to understand the...
All right, that's it. Deborah did get into that as well. And I'm not really sure as of right now what started these fires over there, whether it was the or the space-based weapons, or was it the smart meters, or is it a combination of both? But nonetheless, our good friends Lou and Deborah Tavares are in a very critical situation, and the powers that be would definitely like to silence her voice and destroy all of this evidence that she has. And so, in my view, this is very much a targeted, not just the fact of taking out all the other people they want to get out of Northern California, but it's targeted against Lou and Deborah Tavares. Let's move on to some other things here as well, because as I said, we're looking at all these kind of strange weather phenomena that are happening around the country, around the world, not just the country, but around the world. And right now, we have two storms that are headed to the Gulf of Mexico, both of them tropical depressions. One has already been named. It's the one this kind of beelining towards the panhandle of Florida and Alabama, Mississippi. This storm has been named Laura. That is TD13, and TD14 has not been named as far as I know of as of yet. But both these storms, very unprecedented, are to make landfall almost the same, well, actually the same day. And that's pretty wild. I don't know if I've seen anything like, well, maybe years ago they had one off of Baja California, two tropical storms that made landfall that also created a tremendous amount of havoc, creating, I think, a 13-foot wall of water that did a lot of destruction when the waters came out of the mountains there just out of San Diego or south of San Diego. I can remember that as a kid, but nothing like that since then. And then we have here, this is at the Antarctica. Right? Winds reaching 120 miles an hour, 200 kilometers an hour. Let me just play this clip for you here. This one kind of blew me away. I mean, hey, maybe Antarctica does get winds this high. I have no idea. But it was posted out there as unusual. Antarctica is cold enough. I can only imagine how much colder it is at 120 mile an hour winds. Totally insane, the things that are going on around the earth right now. So, but anyway, and then on top of that, if you remember the derecho storms there that had struck Jessica and her husband, I believe his name's Robert, truckers that we know that were actually in this, texted me in the middle of the night, pray for us, we're scared. And of course, it was because they were also in this derecho storm here.
Tornado force winds on you in a matter of seconds. We had wind speeds of a magnitude of a strong EF1 to low EF2 tornado. Storm chasers.
I heard that this was as much as 140 miles an hour. I know that at the time, Jessica was telling me that it was like 110 mile an hour winds is what they were experiencing it. But most hurricanes, when they come in like that, I've been in one that had right around 100 mile an hour winds at the eye wall, but the eye wall is always short-lived. My wife, she was through, I haven't seen, I think 130, 140 mile an hour wind eye wall, just devastating. But you got to keep in mind, a derecho storm, it covers a wide bandwidth of land there, and that winds are not just a little small eye wall, but it was, I have no idea, maybe 100 miles wide. The devastation that was done was just unreal. And then the earthquakes. I see this earlier, and my good friend Johnny also had sent this to me probably about 5 minutes after I saw it myself. Earthquake centered near Detroit, Michigan. It was like about 5.5 miles deep, but it was actually a 3.2 earthquake, enough to shake the ground, kind of make residents wonder what was going on. So I jumped over here to the USGS survey to look at that. I saw that one there, but then I started noticing again More earthquakes down in Indonesia, 5.5 hitting Bengkulu, Indonesia, and then also another 6.9 hitting Katuba, India. And then, of course, all along the coast of California, down into Baja Peninsula, dropping all the way down to Chile, as well as in Bolivia. Bolivia getting a 4.1, and also Chile getting a 4. I believe it was a 4.1 in Chile as well. Yes, 4.1 in Chile. And, of course, Texas, up in even smaller earthquakes up there around Yellowstone, West Yellowstone, Montana. So things are just going nuts right now. Even Hawaii getting a little 2.8 earthquake. So all kinds of crazy things happening all over the earth there. And then, of course, my wife had shared with me, and like I said, somebody had sent me the article itself. My wife was telling me earlier today about the genetically engineered mosquitoes that are going to be released in Florida. Now, the sister that sent the article to me, she reminded me, she said, Brother Steve, she said, they're actually going to release these mosquitoes, not only in Florida off the Keys, but the article states in there, which is very true, the article does state it, it's also going to be released in Harrison County, Texas. She said, I remember you talking about how that one of your sources had talked about that they would target Florida and Texas, the undesirables. She said, could it be that this genetically modified mosquito is one of those plans? Of course, it was Texas, Florida, and New York City. I don't know, but that is very weird, this genetically modified mosquito being released. And, of course, they're claiming that it will die off at an early stage. Sounds really weird. Israel's first military exercise in Germany, moving event. Says that because it was the pilots that flew with the Germans were pilots of former Holocaust survivors. I think it's a little bit odd that this is happening, but you just never know. Don't know exactly what the purpose is behind this, but it does seem very strange. And then, of course, coming out on Israel's Hayom, which is Israel Today, their news source there, Israeli horrified by alleged gang rape of a teenage girl by 30 men. Police arrested several suspects in the rape of a 16-year-old girl. One suspect says men lined up outside the girl's hotel room while eyewitnesses failed to intervene. That's exactly right. They failed to intervene. And they shouldn't just arrest one or two. Every single one of them needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent that it can possibly be done. And as I said earlier, I can only imagine what has happened to many. If this happens to a tourist, and I'm not sure where the tourist is actually from, down in Eilat, Israel, imagine what happens to these young women that are Palestinians, that they are considered like less than animals or something in the eyes of many young Israelis. So it is very, very troubling to me to hear about this. And something has got to be done about this. I know that we have a lot of going public, like Benny Gantz, all these Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also tweeting about it, and all acting as if they're enraged and stuff. What are they enraged about? Because it actually got publicly known? I don't know. But anyway, it's a sad day to hear this type of information. I'm Steve Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Good afternoon.